Hey everyone, so I did another bit of reading of this book. I'm starting a new chapter today and it's the Law of Magnetism. And it's basically telling us who we are is who we attract. So John Maxwell had focused on the book of Kings and Ahab, but I'm going to focus on Jesus when he healed the 10 lepers and he reached out to the untouchables. He restored them to community, and because they were restored to community, they were able to then enter the temple, interact with people, get jobs. They were able to live whole lives. And only one of the lepers goes back to say thank you to Jesus. So because of where I am at in my life, I can relate to that Jesus and that image of Jesus. Because what I do is not appreciated in Canada. When I heal people, when I help people, I give them references, I help them to connect to Father Larry, I introduce them to the church. As soon as they settled in and they have what they want, they forget about me. They don't bother to come back to say thank you for everything I've done for them. They don't bother to include me in their family gatherings or their parties, or to help me to get into good paying jobs. They just forget about me and say, oh well, she helped us when we were at our lowest and we needed her, and so that's that. But actually it's not right. Because if I've helped you, one hand washes the other. I want you to also think about me, include me in family gatherings, change your ways and change your heart, because it's not right. And even Jesus says it's not right. He told the leper, he said, there were 10 of you. How come only you came back to say thank you to me? And that is true. I've only had one person come back to say thank you to me, and she's sitting in a director level role. She's one of the ladies I mentored who came here from overseas. The rest of them just say, oh shame, sorry, I hope it works out. It's the same thing with the family. I did so much for my sister and my brother-in-law. On top of it, I get taken to the police station by my aunt and uncle and accused of being fixated and obsessed with them. I get told nobody is going to help me. I mean, that is not right. And if people come to me and I help them, when they get into those high-powered jobs, when they get into those good opportunities, they should think of me and they should be helping me to get into those jobs alongside them, to work with them, but they're not. So what's happening is I'm going in as a consultant, and then like at BMO, I worked with Anna Bouting. They kept her. I never talked about how hard life was for me and my family in Africa. She told them how hard things were for her family in Nigeria and how they had to fly in the water and all of that. They let her go on holiday, she came back and they made her permanent. And what did they do to me? They said, oh yeah, we've got a 2-year contract for you. And when I got home that night, they called me and they said, oh no, sorry, there's no job. So how is that fair to me? And she's had the opportunity to rise up in the organization, to be invested in, to be coached, and I've been left to basically fend for myself. And they have not been nice to me, these executives that I worked with. When I worked with Teresa Bowman at TD Securities, and I went to her and I asked her if they could help me to get my HR professional dues and to invest in me, she told me I had an attitude of entitlement. I was gobsmacked. I mean, I was not raised to say anything back. But now I tell them, you know what, you're white, and you had white men open doors for you. She got into that job because Warren Bell was her mentor. And Warren Bell was the one that got me into TD when he saw my skills and my education. First, I went in through a deco, and then he got me in to work with her because he thought that she would sponsor me and she would help me to come up in the organization. But all I got from her was pushback. I got $5 gift cards at Christmas time for Tim Hortons, if I was lucky. And if she had tickets for the theater that she wasn't going to use, she would give them to me. So I would say thank you. And I would go, because tickets to the theater are expensive here. And normally they were those ones where you can sit on the orchestra level, the ground level. So they were very good tickets. But if she hadn't given them to me, they would have given them to somebody else. So, I mean, when you come here from Zimbabwe, and somebody like her, who's earning a hefty salary, who's got all the support around her, turns around and says to me, who's an executive assistant, oh, you have an attitude of entitlement, what are you supposed to say back? I just looked at her and I shook my head and I walked out. Because it's ridiculous. The same thing happened with Jean de Gagne. And when I told him, I said, I just bought my place, I just sponsored my mother, and I don't really want to leave the bank. And he said to me, Belinda, we've given you an increase, we've given you whatever we can, and unfortunately your position has been eliminated. So, I mean, I liked him, but did he reach back to say, let's get Belinda into another job that will be similar where she worked as a partner with us? He didn't. The same thing with Jason Peel. When I went, whatever I did with the permission of the team I was supporting. And they told me I could go and I could leave that box of chocolates at BMO. And he turned around and told me, you can't just go. So, I mean, he doesn't even know the kind of relationships I had with the team there, with the juniors. And I can tell you now, the team I supported liked me. My juniors liked me. They all cried when I left there. And they used to tell me, push back on these executives, look how they're treating you. Because they didn't treat me with any respect. And it wasn't right. Because I worked at the executive level. I worked as an admin assistant to the general manager in Zimbabwe. I worked in leadership and management positions in South Africa. I worked in management positions in the UK. So I just looked at them. I wanted to say, you know what, you're ignorant. Because you've only worked in Canada. You haven't had the opportunity to work in Zimbabwe or South Africa or to interact with other cultures. But I was polite. I didn't say anything. I said, okay, well, thank you for the opportunity to work with you. I hope you find somebody that you'd like to work with in the future and that will do as good a job for you as I did. I told him when I left, because it's ridiculous. I mean, if you put out good, you want good to come back to you. You don't want to constantly be shafted, constantly be let go from your jobs, constantly have to beg people, oh, can you please wait for the rent this month because, I'm waiting for my employment insurance, it hasn't come through. And you can't say, oh, that's just circumstances, because it's not, it's discrimination. Because in this country, the people that are at the top and got there, even Bharat Misrani, Ed Clark was the one that got him into that job. Nobody gets to where they are on their own. Every job I had to get on my own. I had to go and register with agencies, apply to them, go stand in long queues, and queues going like round the block, handing out my resume and get my jobs that way. Not one person that I've helped, that I've sat on boards with, that I've been there for has helped me to get into a good paying job. Not one. I pray, I put my faith in God, but is it right? No, it's not right. It's not right. So this chapter here is basically looking at that, the law of magnetism. So who was attracted to Jesus? The outcasts, the people who had nothing, the people who were desperate. And sometimes it was the rich people because they couldn't get cures for their children. They came to him. So it's the same thing with me. But at the same time, I want them to come back to me and say thank you. I want them to help me to get into good paid jobs. I want things to change for me because I'm tired of living like this. And then he says, the leader's magnetism may impact others intellectually, emotionally, or volitionally. So we can have an impact on people, and you can say, oh, you should give a gift and not expect anything. The reward will come from God. Yes, the reward will come from God, but we also have to tell people what we want, because that is total nonsense to say, oh, you don't know how to give a gift. That's rubbish. In every culture, in every society, we are people through other people. And whatever my dad did for his cousins, for his brothers, they shouldn't have turn around and say to me, oh, we don't know what you're going to do. How rude is it? And how hurtful is it? It's not right. Because I didn't do anything for them to turn around and treat me that badly. They enjoyed so many holidays with my mother, at family gatherings, at weddings, and I've been there for them. When my uncles were sick, I used to call, I used to ask how they were. Did any of them bother to call me after the investigation closed? No. They told me, you must go to Sunnybrook. We are not going to be there for you. So that's why I'm saying we're not a family. Because any family who loved you and cared about you, any friends would keep in touch, they would call you, they'd ask you how you're doing. They would say, you know what, Belinda, don't worry, we'll be there for you. You don't have to go and sit in Sunnybrook, and we don't have to take you and leave you there. They couldn't be bothered. And then the third point is that magnetism is neither good or bad. It depends on what you do with it. And that's true. It's what we do with it that counts. It's just like money. Money, it's what we do with it that counts. I could have taken every penny I've earned and gone drinking, gone to buy drugs, gone to party, gone to discos. I did all the right things, so what did they do? Oh, she's too good, let's follow her and see what she's doing. The same thing they did to Jesus is what they did to me. Why don't you leave people who are good to live their lives in peace and concentrate on helping people that need your help instead of coming after us? That would be a good thing for you to do. And then John Maxwell says, while all leaders draw similar followers, secure leaders draw both similar and complementary followers. So we all have areas of strength, we all have areas of weakness. I find it very, very hard to relate to these North Americans with their attitudes of entitlement. Oh, I paid for the parcel, so it's your fault that it didn't arrive. And don't you dare talk to me that way. Who do you think you are? You stupid fucking bitch. That's how they talk to us. I mean, they have no manners. And I've come here from a country where I've survived droughts. I've had to walk to school. We were taught about the fact that you might see lions on the way. You might see kudu or snakes or elephants. Because when we first built our place, it was in the bush. So we had to be trained in those things, and we were frightened. But my mother wasn't going to take us in the car, so we had to do it. She sat in the shop, and she made me walk. I had to do it. What choice did I have? I was living in her house, and she's still like that. You'd think over the years that maybe she would have softened, but she hasn't. She's still like that. And it's not fair to me. It's not right how I get treated. And then the last point he makes is that a leader's magnetism is not static. If you look at the people you have been attracting as a leader, you will find out a lot about yourself. So magnetism can be developed, and we can look at what kind of people are attracted to us, and we can focus on that. It was the same way when my dad's friend Alexi Fernandez and Faust Fernandez, their daughter had an aneurysm. She had a brain problem, and they operated on her. I went to see her in the hospital. I didn't have to do it. I did it out of the love that I had because I remembered her from when I was small. I invited her to my place, and I kept in touch with the extended family here. I didn't have to do it. But what did she tell me? Oh, why don't you get a job as a cleaner in the hotel? I said to her, I don't want a job as a cleaner. Alexi. I said, I've worked hard. I've studied. I went to university. I said, the same way your son-in-law has got a good paying job as an accountant, the same way your children get good paying jobs, I also want a good paying job. And then they all say, oh, well, just for now, just to get you out of the house. But then how does that work? You take those jobs hoping that you'll get something better, and it never materializes. Why aren't people putting me forward for those executive assistant jobs, for those management jobs, for those white-collar jobs? That's what I want. I don't want to constantly be having to take menial work, jobs where I'm going to be shouted at and screamed at, or where the executive like Teresa Bowman are going to tell me, oh, you have an attitude of entitlement. I did a good job for her. Even when she went to Asia and came back, I had everything ready for her. It's not fair to me. They are the ones with the attitude of entitlement, not me. Because they get everything. Everything's provided for them. They looked after. When they go overseas, they have homes provided. They have stipends provided. They have stocks. They have shares. They have bonds. And then they tell me I have an attitude of entitlement. Since when? It's not right. It's absolutely not right. And I'm hoping and praying things change for me, because I deserve better from this country. And if it means leaving here and going back to England, I would rather do that than stay here and stay in a low-paid, menial job where I'm going to get shouted at and sworn at, do an excellent job, and then get let go because I didn't pass some stupid test. I mean, it's ridiculous. Not everybody passes tests. Some of us do well with a little bit of coaching and a little bit of support.